Imagine for a moment a woman named Sarah. She's intelligent, driven, successful, a woman who has it all. Yet, despite her accomplishments and self-awareness, Sarah keeps falling for the wrong men. She meets them in coffee shops, at work events, or through friends, charismatic, attractive, confident men who seem to know exactly what to say. But soon enough, Sarah finds herself tangled in emotional chaos, her self-esteem dwindling, questioning how she ended up in yet another toxic relationship. How does this happen? Why, with all her knowledge and life experience, does she continue to attract men who are, in the end, wrong for her? It's a question many women and men have asked themselves. Why do we attract the wrong people? And why, when we know better, do we still make choices that seem to betray our own best interests? This is where the story gets interesting. Because the answer, it turns out, may not be as simple as it seems. In fact, it may go back centuries, right back to the wisdom of Aristotle, whose ideas on human nature can still explain much about why we make these choices today. Aristotle believed that humans were governed by unconscious rules, forces operating beneath the surface of our everyday awareness. These hidden rules are subtle and often overlooked, but they shape everything we do, including who we are drawn to, romantically and otherwise. But what does this mean for Sarah and for the rest of us? Are our romantic choices governed by something deeper, something older than we ever realized? Are we, in some way, trapped by an invisible set of rules that limit our potential for healthy, meaningful connections? In this documentary, we're going to explore that question. We'll examine how these hidden rules work, how they shape our relationships, and how, by understanding them, we might finally break free from the cycle of attracting the wrong people. But first, let's take a step back, way back, and uncover the ancient wisdom that might just hold the key to understanding our modern relationships. Now, let's dive deeper into the theory that could explain why Sarah, despite her intelligence and self-awareness, keeps attracting the wrong men. To understand this, we must travel back to the ancient wisdom of Aristotle, whose ideas about human behavior still resonate today. Aristotle was one of the first to suggest that much of human behavior is driven not by conscious thought, but by deeper, unconscious forces. He argued that our motivations, desires, and choices are often shaped by a set of ideals that we may not even be fully aware of, what he called the unconscious ideal. For Aristotle, this unconscious ideal isn't just a fleeting desire. It's a deep, almost invisible force that guides much of our life. It's like an internal compass, directing us toward particular goals, ideals, and yes, partners, without us even realizing it. So, how does this apply to Sarah? Let's think about it. She might consciously believe she's looking for a kind, caring, and emotionally stable partner. Yet time and time again, she's drawn to a very different kind of man, one who's charismatic, emotionally unavailable, or even self-destructive. Why does she keep falling for the wrong men? Aristotle would argue that her conscious choices are only part of the equation. Beneath the surface, there are deeper forces at play, forces shaped by biology, social conditioning, and her early life experiences. These hidden influences create an internalized ideal of what a romantic partner should be. And more often than not, this ideal is based on patterns we've inherited from childhood or societal norms, rather than healthy or conscious desires. Take, for example, a woman who grew up in an environment where love was chaotic, perhaps with a parent who was emotionally distant or volatile. This experience may have unknowingly shaped her unconscious ideal, a partner who is unpredictable, thrilling, or even difficult to reach. Her conscious mind might seek stability, but deep down, the unconscious ideal leads her back to men who mirror the emotional dynamics she grew up with. In Sarah's case, the wrong men might not be a conscious choice at all. Her internalized ideal, formed over years of experience, could be guiding her to partners who subconsciously meet the emotional needs she doesn't fully understand. Whether it's the rush of excitement, the challenge of winning someone over, or the familiarity of emotional turmoil, these partners represent something far deeper than her conscious desires. As we follow Sarah through her dating life, we see how she continues to repeat this cycle, unable to break free. She consciously tells herself that she wants stability, but the men she attracts are anything but stable. And no matter how many times she gets hurt, she seems drawn to the same kind of chaos. This isn't because Sarah is flawed, but because, like all of us, she is influenced by the unconscious ideal, a force that operates in the shadows, guiding us toward what we think we want, but ultimately keeping us trapped in unhealthy patterns. This brings us to a difficult question. Are we truly in control of our romantic choices? Or are we simply reacting to an unseen force, a force that manipulates our desires, making us choose partners who reinforce old wounds rather than healing them? The answer, according to Aristotle, is both humbling and liberating. Our choices may not be entirely our own, but by becoming aware of these unconscious ideals, we can start to make more conscious decisions that break the cycle and allow us to choose partners who align with our true desires, not the ones shaped by our past. To understand why some women are drawn to the wrong men, we must turn to the past, a past filled with powerful stories and archetypes that have shaped our modern desires and perceptions of love. These archetypes didn't just emerge in the modern era. They've been embedded in our cultural DNA for centuries, passed down through myths, literature, and history. Consider the figure of Achilles, the tragic hero of Greek mythology. A man of unmatched strength and heroism, but also one whose fatal flaw, his uncontrollable rage, led to his downfall. Women across the ancient world were captivated by his power, his beauty, and his magnetic allure. Yet Achilles' very nature, as heroic as it was, came at the cost of the destruction he left in his wake. His story was a celebration of the wrong man, the man whose flaws, instead of being repelled, became a symbol of his attraction. This was a man women were drawn to despite, or perhaps because of, his volatility. Fast forward to Oedipus, another iconic figure from ancient Greek mythology. Oedipus too was a man whose greatness was marred by an inescapable tragic flaw, his ignorance of his own fate. His story, steeped in mystery and the pull of destiny, captivates the imagination even today. Yet his allure lies in the dangerous complexity of his character, a man doomed by forces beyond his control, yet still someone women could not resist. Even in his tragic downfall, there's a sense of fascination with his strength, intellect, and the sense of mystery that surrounds him. This isn't limited to ancient myths. As we move into the modern world, we see these same archetypes at play: the bad boy, the man of mystery, and the dominant figure. These are the men who dominate pop culture. Think of James Dean in Rebel Without a Cause, or the brooding, mysterious heroes of countless romance novels and movies. These figures are often glorified for their emotional unavailability, their rebelliousness, and their destructive tendencies. Yet, they remain universally desirable. The dangerous allure of these men, the ones with power, mystery, and dominance, has been ingrained in our cultural imagination. It is no coincidence that, from the time of ancient Greece to modern pop culture, women have been drawn to these archetypes. Societal structures, gender roles, and power dynamics have shaped the idea of what a man should be, often valuing traits that lead to destruction rather than stability or kindness. But why are these figures so compelling? Why do we romanticize the wrong man, even when we know his traits will ultimately hurt us? The answer lies in the way these figures represent something deeper, a primal connection to strength, mystery, and the unknown. In an era where power dynamics have historically favored men, these qualities have been romanticized as symbols of masculinity and allure. Women, raised in cultures where strength and dominance have been the standard for desirability, have learned to associate these traits with romance. Yet what's often overlooked is the damage these archetypes cause, how the attraction to these figures perpetuates cycles of unhealthy relationships. The traits that make these men attractive are often the very same traits that lead to emotional turmoil, manipulation, and heartbreak. This is where the danger lies, in our cultural conditioning. These historical archetypes, celebrated through centuries of literature, mythology, and media, have created an ideal that many women, knowingly or unknowingly, seek out. And in doing so, they are often drawn into relationships with men who mirror these dangerous, destructive qualities. As we continue our exploration into why women often fall for the wrong men, we now turn to the intricate psychology of attraction, an area where the lines between nature and nurture blur in fascinating ways. What is it that makes us attracted to certain people? Is it biological, something hardwired into us from the moment we're born? Or is it shaped by our experiences, our upbringing, and the cultural influences around us? Let's start with the age-old debate of nature versus nurture. Genetic predispositions, such as hormonal influences and biological instincts, do play a role in attraction. Evolutionary psychology suggests that we are instinctively drawn to certain traits that signal reproductive health and genetic compatibility, features like physical strength, symmetry, and dominance. These are the traits that often characterize the wrong man, the bad boy, or the emotionally unavailable partner who embodies power, risk, and mystery. However, as we know, attraction is far more complicated than simple biology. This is where nurture, our life experiences, our environment, and the society we grow up in becomes just as influential. Psychologists suggest that the attachment styles we develop as children, based on our interactions with caregivers, have a profound impact on the type of partner we seek in adulthood. Take, for example, a woman who grew up in a chaotic household, where her needs for love and stability were inconsistently met. As a result, she may develop an anxious attachment style, leading her to crave closeness and validation from men, but ultimately find herself repeatedly attracted to partners who are distant or unpredictable. These partners may trigger her unresolved childhood needs, making the cycle of attraction to the wrong man feel almost inescapable. There's also the concept of imprinting, the idea that our early experiences shape the kinds of partners we subconsciously choose as adults. Just as a duckling will follow the first moving object it sees as its mother, we are often imprinted on specific relational dynamics based on our childhood. If a woman witnessed her mother's dependence on a distant, emotionally unavailable man, she may unknowingly replicate that dynamic in her own relationships, even if she consciously rejects it. This paradox, the conflict between what we consciously desire and what we are subconsciously drawn to, creates a psychological push and pull that can be both frustrating and bewildering. It's the reason why women, like Sarah, can tell themselves they're seeking a stable, emotionally available partner, only to find themselves attracted to someone who embodies the very opposite. Even when they know deep down that this relationship is unhealthy, they feel compelled to pursue it. It's a complex and layered psychological reality, one that challenges our understanding of free will and romantic choice. Are we really in control of who we choose to love? Or are we simply reacting to deeply ingrained patterns formed long before we even understood what love truly meant? Now that we've explored the psychological forces driving attraction, we turn our attention to a more modern and equally powerful force shaping romantic relationships: the media and pop culture. From films to music to advertisements, the portrayal of masculinity in the media has had a profound effect on the way women perceive their ideal partners. And perhaps most strikingly, it's often the wrong man, the emotionally unavailable, rebellious, or dominant figure who is glorified and romanticized. Think back to iconic characters in cinema. James Dean as Jim Stark in Rebel Without a Cause, a brooding, misunderstood teenager who captures the hearts of women with his reckless, self-destructive tendencies. Or the anti-hero figures of modern-day media, like the tortured billionaire Christian Grey from 50 Shades of Grey. These characters embody the qualities that many women find irresistibly attractive: danger, mystery, and the allure of the bad boy. But what these characters often have in common is that their attraction comes with a dark side: emotional volatility, possessiveness, and even manipulation. Yet these qualities are frequently depicted as signs of deep passion or a tortured soul in need of love. The portrayal of toxic masculinity as something inherently alluring reinforces the idea that real men are bold, unpredictable, and a little dangerous. Pop culture doesn't just reflect our desires, it shapes them. When we watch movies or read books that glorify these types of men, we are subconsciously taught to associate masculinity with dominance, mystery, and emotional unavailability. These portrayals warp our perceptions of what a healthy, loving relationship should look like. Instead of seeing love as a partnership based on respect and mutual care, we start to internalize the narrative that passion and love can only exist through tension and turmoil. Even more troubling is how these portrayals influence real-world relationships. Women who are exposed to this consistent messaging may begin to believe that these qualities are what they need in a partner to experience true love. The man who doesn't text back immediately, the one who keeps her guessing. These traits, so often romanticized in the media, become markers of attraction. The more they are perpetuated, the more ingrained they become in our collective consciousness. Yet the reality is starkly different. These qualities, when manifested in real-life relationships, often lead to heartbreak, emotional confusion, and even manipulation. And yet, time and time again, we return to these ideals, subconsciously driven by the media's constant reinforcement of them. In the end, the media and pop culture don't just shape our ideals, they dictate them. And in doing so, they have an enormous impact on the kind of men women are drawn to, often perpetuating the cycle of attraction to the wrong type of partner. As we've explored, the attraction to the wrong man isn't a random occurrence. It's deeply woven into the fabric of our psychology, history, and cultural conditioning. But what happens when this cycle continues to repeat itself? What happens when women, despite their awareness, find themselves back in the same unhealthy relationships over and over again? The danger is far greater than mere disappointment. Repeating the cycle of attraction to the wrong man can have severe consequences on emotional well-being. Each time a woman finds herself falling for someone who ultimately undermines her self-worth, she chips away at her sense of self. The constant emotional turmoil, the confusion, and the frustration start to feel inevitable, perhaps even deserved. Real-life examples of women trapped in these cycles are all too common. Take a woman who, despite knowing the red flags, continues to seek out partners who display traits of emotional unavailability or volatility. She might rationalize their behavior, hoping that love will fix them. Over time, these toxic relationships take a toll on her mental health, leaving her feeling more isolated and disconnected from her own needs. Consider the case of Emily, a successful woman in her 30s who finds herself in one toxic relationship after another. She's drawn to men who are distant, detached, or even manipulative, even though she consciously seeks stability and security. Despite her successes in every other aspect of life, she's unable to break free from this cycle. As each relationship crumbles, she finds herself asking, "Why does this keep happening to me?" But the truth is, Emily is unknowingly tethered to a pattern, one that began long before she even realized it. This is where the danger lies. Emotional and psychological harm begins to accumulate, and self-worth becomes more fragile. The cycle of attraction to the wrong man is not merely a romantic misstep. It is the repeated reinforcement of unhealthy relational patterns that deeply affect a woman's mental health, sense of agency, and emotional stability. But there's something more at stake here. These patterns don't just affect one individual, they perpetuate a larger societal problem, feeding into unhealthy relationship dynamics that are accepted as the norm. The consequences of this cycle affect not only women, but the relationships they form, reinforcing the very norms that society struggles to move beyond. If the cycle of attracting the wrong man is so deeply ingrained, how can a woman reclaim control over her romantic choices and finally choose a partner who reflects her true desires rather than her unconscious patterns? The answer, as Aristotle might suggest, lies in self-awareness. Understanding that our choices are often influenced by unconscious forces is the first step in reclaiming autonomy. The key is recognizing these forces, not as something we are slaves to, but as something we can transcend with conscious effort. By identifying the hidden rules shaping our choices, we begin to dismantle the patterns that have kept us stuck. Self-awareness doesn't happen overnight. It requires honest introspection and a willingness to confront the emotional wounds from our past that have influenced the way we view love. For example, healing from early childhood trauma or resolving issues of self-worth can allow a woman to move beyond the unconscious pull of unhealthy partners. This is not about changing what we're attracted to. Rather, it's about changing our emotional response to those attractions. Another crucial step is actively questioning societal norms that dictate what love and masculinity should look like. We must challenge the romanticized ideals perpetuated by media, society, and history. By understanding that the wrong man is often glorified in our culture, we can shift our perspective and redefine what we truly want in a partner, something deeper, healthier, and more aligned with our values. The concept of the conscious relationship emerges here, where a woman is not only aware of her desires, but is also grounded in her values. Instead of seeking external validation from someone who embodies dangerous, outdated ideals, she begins to choose a partner based on compatibility, mutual respect, and emotional availability. The conscious relationship is rooted in self-love and self-awareness, setting the stage for a healthier and more fulfilling partnership. The journey to breaking free from these unconscious patterns require effort and reflection. It's not easy, and it won't happen in a day. But the reward is worth it, a life and a love that are consciously chosen, not dictated by invisible forces. As we close this exploration of the hidden forces that shape our romantic choices, we are left with one powerful question. What can we do with this knowledge? Understanding the hidden rule that guides our attraction is the first step toward transforming our relationships. But the real work begins when we take control. The unconscious patterns that govern our desires may be deeply ingrained, but they are not unchangeable. With self-awareness, introspection, and a willingness to challenge societal norms, we can break free from the cycle of attracting the wrong partners. This is not just about romantic relationships. It's about reclaiming our autonomy and reshaping the way we interact with the world. By breaking free from unconscious conditioning, we gain the power to define love on our own terms. We no longer need to be trapped by the idealized wrong man that society presents to us. So, take a moment to reflect. Are you falling into the same patterns? Are you choosing partners who reflect old wounds or societal ideals rather than your true desires? The key to breaking free lies within you. It's time to reclaim control of your romantic choices and reshape the way you see love, relationships, and yourself.